I'm Dalton, 42 male. I live a quiet life in Queens in a small apartment above my furniture restoration shop. It's simple work fixing things that other people have thrown away, but it's honest. I thought the worst day of my life was when my mother looked me in the eye during her will reading and called me worthless. I was wrong. The truly worst day came 3 days later when I discovered the truth she had spent 20 years burying. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My life was predictable. I'd wake up at 6, make coffee, and head downstairs to my shop. It smelled of wood stain and lemon oil, the same smells I associated with my father, Nathaniel. He taught me everything about wood, about honor, about finding value in broken things. He died 20 years ago when I was just 22. My mother, Francine Reeves, was the opposite. She died at 71, a force of nature who built a $38 million real estate empire. Her favorite story, the one she told at every party, was how she'd built that empire from nothing. She'd married my father, a failed carpenter, and had to save our family from his total lack of ambition. While he played with saws in the garage, she was closing deals and building our future. My twin sisters, Bianca and Porsche, were her prize pupils. They were sharp, ruthless, and polished. Both went to Yale, both married investment bankers, and both lived in Manhattan penthouses where the monthly maintenance fees were more than I made in a year. To them, I was Dalton the craftsman. They'd pity me at family dinners, asking if I was still playing with wood like Dad. I was. I chose this life partly to honor him and partly to spite her. My father was a quiet man. He never raised his voice, not even when Mom was screaming about his latest failure. He died in a hospital bed while she was at a property closing. His last words to me were, "The truth has been waiting for you to be ready." I had no idea what he meant. The day Mom died, I was working on a Victorian desk. My Uncle Roderick, Dad's brother, called, a massive heart attack. By the time I got to the hospital, she was gone. My sisters were already on their phones with lawyers. The funeral was a who's who of New York real estate. At the reception, Uncle Roderick pulled me aside. "Your mother never forgave your father for something," he said, nursing a whiskey. "But Dalton, your dad wasn't who she made him out to be. Remember that when the will is read." I thought he was just trying to make me feel better about the inheritance I knew I wasn't getting. The law office of Jacobson and Associates was on the 40th floor, all glass and chrome. I showed up in my only good suit, my father's old watch on my wrist. My sisters were already there, sitting like queens holding court, their husbands flanking them. "Dalton, you came," Bianca said, surprised. "We were just discussing Mom's properties in Connecticut." Porsche didn't look up from her phone. "The Westchester estate alone is worth $12 million. Mr. Jacobson, Mom's lawyer for 30 years, entered. He looked like he was about to perform an execution. "Let's begin," he said. The first 10 minutes were as expected, some charitable donations, then the part my sisters were waiting for. "To my daughters, Bianca and Porsche, I leave my entire estate, all properties, all accounts, all investments to be divided equally." My sisters exchanged a satisfied glance. Porsche's husband was already texting. Bianca patted my hand with the kind of pity you show a stray dog. "Oh, Dalton," she said, "we'll make sure you're okay. Maybe we can hire you to restore some furniture." Jacobson cleared his throat. "There's more. To my son, Dalton, I leave your father's briefcase from the hall closet. It has been in my possession for 20 years untouched." The room went silent, then Porsche laughed, a short, sharp sound like breaking glass. "A briefcase? Mom saved it just to make a point. Classic Francine." Jacobson continued, his voice quiet. "May you finally understand that choosing his path leads nowhere. You're worthless just like Nathaniel was." The words hung in the air like poison. Even my sisters looked uncomfortable. Jacobson returned with the briefcase. It was cracked brown leather covered in dust with rusty clasps. He handed it to me with an expression of pure pity. "Dalton, you're free to go." I walked out of that high-rise holding my entire inheritance. The valet in the garage saw me carrying the dusty case and asked if I needed help taking it to my truck. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. Back in my workshop, I set the briefcase on my workbench and just stared at it. This was her final insult, her last lesson to prove I was nothing. I slowly opened the rusty clasps, expecting nothing. Inside was exactly WH. And I thought, my dad's old drafting tools, pencils worn down to nubs, and a few furniture sketches. It was a box of ghosts. I almost threw the whole thing in the trash. But at the very bottom, tucked in a corner pocket, was a single business card. It was thick, cream-colored cardstock, yellowed with age. It read, "Holloway Trust and Savings, Manhattan, EST 1894. Below that, just a phone number, no name, no address. The card sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days. Every morning I'd look at it while my coffee brewed. Was this part of the joke? A wild goose chase to a closed account with $50 in it? A dead number, but my father's last words echoed in my head. The truth has been waiting for you to be ready. On the third night, I was finishing the Victorian desk. As I applied the final coat of oil, my father's old lesson came back to me. Wood never lies, Dalton. It shows every flaw, every strength, every story. I made my decision. Thursday morning, 9:00 a.m. sharp, I dialed the number. A crisp, professional voice answered. Holloway Trust. My voice was shaky. Hi, I found this card in my father's things. His name was Nathaniel Reeves. There was a long silence. I thought the call had dropped. Then the woman's tone changed completely. Please hold. A moment later, an older, formal male voice came on the line. Am I speaking with Dalton Nathaniel Reeves? Oh, yes, I said. Mr. Reeves, my name is Charles Aldrich. I'm the president of Holloway Trust. We've been waiting 20 years for this call. Your father's trust has very specific instructions. You need to come to our Manhattan office immediately. Bring the briefcase and your identification. Can you be here by noon? I closed the shop, put on my suit again, and caught the train to Manhattan. The briefcase suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The bank building wasn't modern glass. It was old-world granite and brass. The lobby had an actual elevator operator who took me to the 7th floor without my saying a word. Mr. Aldrich met me himself. He was a man in his 70s with silver hair, and his eyes were sharp as he studied my face. You look like him, he said. Same eyes, please come with me. He led me to a room that felt more like a law library than a bank. 3 other people were waiting, 2 men in suits and a woman with a stenographer's pad. Before we proceed, Mr. Aldrich said, we must verify your identity. Your father's instructions were excessive. We require a blood test for DNA, fingerprints, and 3 forms of photo ID. I was stunned. A blood test for a bank account. Mr. Reeves, this is not just a bank account, Aldrich replied gravely. Once you understand the contents, you will appreciate his caution. The next hour was surreal. A nurse appeared from nowhere to draw blood. My fingerprints were taken, both digitally and with old-fashioned ink. 3 different notaries verified my ID and witnessed my signature on a stack of documents. Aldrich supervised every step. Your father, he said while we waited for the final verification, was one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. He came to us 20 years ago with a very unusual request. He wanted to create a trust that could only be accessed by you, only after your mother's passing, and only if you arrived with that specific briefcase. A younger man finally nodded to Aldrich. Confirmation, all requirements have been met. Now, Mr. Reeves, Aldrich said, standing, let me show you what your father left behind. Please bring the briefcase. You'll understand why in a moment. He led me to a hidden elevator and we descended in silence. We stopped at a door marked 17. He input a code, then had me place my hand on a scanner. The lock clicked open. The room was a private, high-security vault. Mr. Aldrich gestured for me to sit at the conference table, then pulled a heavy leather portfolio from a cabinet. Mr. Reeves, he began, his hands trembling slightly. Your father wasn't just a furniture maker. He held 17 patents for furniture designs that revolutionized the hospitality industry. I just stared at him. The modular bed frame system used in every Hilton worldwide. That's his. The stackable conference table that became standard in offices across America. His design. The earthquake-resistant shelving system mandatory in California hotels. Your father created that. He pushed a document across the table. It was a list of patent numbers, registration dates, and a running tally of royalties. My eyes couldn't process the number. There were too many digits. The trust currently holds $347 million. The phone I was holding slipped from my numb hand. It hit the marble floor and the screen spiderwebbed, but I didn't move to pick it up. That's impossible, I whispered. My father died broke. My mother said he left nothing but debt. Your father was never broke, Mr. Reeves, Aldrich said softly. He was a silent genius who chose to remain invisible. But that's not all. He pulled out another document. Are you familiar with Reeves Properties Limited? My mother's company. No, Mr. Reeves, your parents' company. Your father owned 40% of Reeves Properties Limited. He was the founding partner. The room spun. That can't be true. Mom built that herself. She started with your father's identification of undervalued properties, his architectural assessments, and his renovation designs. He was the one who saw the potential in that first Brooklyn building. Your mother was the face, the negotiator. Your father was the foundation. He pulled out boxes of contracts with both their signatures, architectural drawings in my father's distinct hand. He never sold his shares, Aldrich said, never touched the dividends. With the company's current valuation, your 40% is worth approximately $200 million. This was my father's plan, his patience, his truth. I couldn't breathe. Over $500 million. Mr. Aldrich then placed a simple manila envelope in front of me. Your father left letters, one for each year he knew he'd miss. This one is marked open first. My hands shook as I broke the seal. It was my father's handwriting. Dalton, your mother needed to believe she built everything alone. It was the only way she could feel strong after her father told her women couldn't succeed in business. I gave her that gift, my silence, my reputation, everything, because I loved her. But I couldn't let her take your inheritance. The world told her story, this trust tells mine. The workshop keys are in the briefcase's hidden compartment. Press the brass corners simultaneously. It was never sold, it's maintained, waiting, build something beautiful. Love, Dad. I fumbled with the briefcase and found the hidden compartment. Inside were 2 keys and another envelope. This one was in my mother's handwriting, dated the day before she died. Mr. Aldrich looked shocked. She came here, he said quietly. The day before she passed, she insisted on leaving something in your father's trust file. I opened my mother's letters. I know what you'll find, I know what Nathaniel did. I spent 40 years hating him for loving me enough to let me hate him. The briefcase wasn't an insult, Dalton. It was the only apology I could manage. Don't forgive me, just be better than we were, build something beautiful. I sat in that vault for an hour, the first letter from my father in my lap, my mother's confession in my hand, and I wept. I wept for the man I barely knew and the woman I thought I did. The next morning, I called my sisters. The briefcase had some information about Dad's estate, I said, my voice steady. Can you meet me at his old workshop tomorrow? Bring your husbands. Porsche laughed. What estate? What workshop? Mom said she sold that place 20 years ago to cover his debts. Just come, I said, at 2 o'clock. The workshop was in an industrial part of Long Island City. The sign NR Custom Furniture faded to near invisibility. It looked abandoned. My sisters arrived in separate Merceds, their heels clicking on the concrete, their husbands looking annoyed. Dalton, what is this? Bianca demanded. This is a dump. I didn't answer. I put the keys from the briefcase into the locks. They turned smooth as butter. I rolled up the main door. Bianca gasped. The space was massive, 10,000 square feet. It was perfectly preserved like a museum. Every machine, every workbench, every tool was covered in a white cloth. The trust had paid for its maintenance for 2 decades. I flipped the main breaker. The lights hummed on and the ventilation system kicked in. The smell of sawdust and lemon oil filled the air. This isn't possible, Porsche whispered, walking inside. I started pulling tarps off the walls, revealing framed patents, photographs, and letters. There was Dad shaking hands with a president, Dad standing next to a bed in the White House, Dad with the CEO of Hilton grinning over a contract, Dad at Buckingham Palace. Dad designed furniture for 12 presidential administrations, I said, my voice echoing in the huge space. He held 17 patents. Mom knew, she knew the whole time. Bianca was crying, black mascara running down her face. Why didn't he fight back? When Mom humiliated him, why didn't he say anything? Because he loved her more than he loved being right. I led them to a corner where 3 objects sat under a sheet. I pulled it back, revealing 3 identical child-sized chairs made from perfect cherry wood. Each had a small brass plate with our names. He made these when you were born, I said. Mom told him to throw them away. He kept them here. Porsche picked up her chair, her armor of sarcasm completely gone. It's beautiful, she whispered. We sat in that workshop for hours. I told them everything. The trust, the patents, Dad's 40% of their company. Their husbands tried to talk about valuations, but for the first time, my sisters told them to be quiet. 6 months later, the workshop is the Nathaniel Reeves Foundation for Craftsman Education. We offer free training to anyone who wants to learn a trade. My sisters are there every week. Bianca is learning to carve. Porsche is learning to use the lathe. The briefcase sits in a glass case by the entrance. The placard reads, "Sometimes the smallest inheritance carries the greatest worth." My parents' ashes sit together on my new office mantle. Mom taught me how to fight, but Dad taught me when not to.